Yo, 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 what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mystic Kingdom Builder, and today we are back again for another fantastic piece of quality information, education, content. We're going to be touching on another important role within your alliance that, for the most part, is one of the main roles that comes just to something you're going to be doing all the time, every day, on just a more consistent basis, and that's going to be planning and flagging. Right, we're going to show you how to go about flagging, why it is important, all the areas we're going to touch on, and more from kind of start to finish, and give you a good foundational level of knowledge on how to go about doing it in a proficient way. Before we get started, as always, make sure if you're enjoying the content, sub, like, ring the notification bell, and of course, if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, you can hit up our Discord, which you can find in the pinned comment and description down below. Okay. So the first thing is, what is a planner? What's a flagger? Well, essentially, you are just someone who is planting your fortresses, whether it's your center fortress or the additionals, and then you're also flagging or placing and building flags out from those fortresses, because you have to have the fortress down first. And then, again, you can see here as an example, and then you have the red lines that are basically branching out from that. So just really important that the understanding is you are in charge of flagging for the purpose of gathering RSS income that will help your players, as you can claim that will show that as well. It brings you alliance gold, which you need if you want to upgrade technology, and it also allows for your players to gather on those tiles, right, for increased gathering speed. And then you also get a percentage, right, based on what they gather that goes into your alliance storehouse, right? So there's a few reasons, a few benefits there for why flagging is important, and then also kind of what your objective is, right? It's really to know where you're going to flag, have the foresight of knowing what are my next 5 to 10, 15 flags that are going to look like. You just need to Bobby Fischer, Magnus Carlsen out this piece, essentially. So now let's kind of take a look at, what are some good income numbers that you should be looking to aim for. And I should say before there, right, let's look at some of the deposit nodes, right? So how do you even find those, right? You're basically gathering these deposit nodes that you see here, or if you zoom all the way out and you click on resources, you can see where those are. And you can see here that if we have on Alliance, and I'll just give you an example, if we zoom in here, you can see that something like this gold is there, this gold is there, these are your RSS deposits. And you'll see as I click on here, it'll say Alliance Gold Deposit, right? Or it'll say Stone Deposit, or Wood, or Food. And this is how much you get per hour. So now, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the storehouse so we can show you how that looks. So this is basically keeping track of how much of any of these 4 resources you are gaining per hour, what your storehouse capacity is, and then how much of that resource do you currently have. And why it's important is because the higher numbers you have, right, you can see here that these are territory resource earnings, right? This is an amount or a percentage that you're going to get that you can claim, and it goes right into it, right? So it's nice to get this just on an accumulative daily basis. Okay, so now let's talk about kind of what is a good ratio that you want to try and have. So I think if we take a look at the ratio in this alliance is a good example, right? You want to kind of have food and wood about the same, stone a little bit less, and then alliance gold a little bit less than that. So if we do every 10, right, if we kind of go out of 10, you would go 10, 10, 8, 6. You could also go 7, 5, even though I think kind of 8, 6 is a little more ideal. If you're looking at this for shorter numbers, you can look at this as 5, 5, 4, 3, right, is another way of looking at it. And now it doesn't mean that you have to go in order when you're flagging out, but just something to keep in mind as kind of end goals that you want to get to ratio-wise. Okay, so now let's next talk about where are you going to place your center fortress, right? After you've accumulated your 1,000 alliance credits, right after starting out from your helps and your donations, you can now place. So the important thing here when it comes to placing your center fortress, right, when you're starting out as an alliance, is you want to look at clusters. So there's a couple of factors. Clusters of deposits, proximity and location between objectives, which is, for example, your sanctums, which are the small diamonds, the big diamonds, which are, or big, I'll go with crystal shaped icon, your altars. And you want to think about also your level 2 passes, right? So you kind of don't want to be too far away from the level 2 pass, but you also want to try and be centered as much as you can to where you can easily connect in the shortest route amount of flags possible to other objectives, right? Depending on how many you're going for. And this is obviously factored into a big asterisk here because it depends on how your zone 1 province plays out, right? Is it just rogue free-for-all? Are you guys splitting between other big alliances? Are you pretty much the only big alliance? You can kind of just take what you want. It does depend on your individual situation, so be sure to assess that. But in a general rule of thumb, you want to look for clusters. An example of this would be, well, here's one cluster, right? Where I have a gold, it looks like 2 food or 2 wood there. I have another cluster if I go over this way where you can see 2 gold here. I have a gold, 2 wood, right? So just some examples on how you can kind of identify and point out or find clusters, right? If you can get, I would say 3 RSS deposits is somewhat ideal to try and place down so you can have kind of the most amount that you're able to get in a small area. And then from there, you have to think about, not only am I looking at the clusters, but I need to think about proximity to the structures. I need to think about proximity to my zone 2 gate, right? And so those are the big things that you want to factor in. So let's say you have your center fortress down. Now it's where am I flagging, and then how am I going to go about flagging efficiently? So let's look here as an example, right? So you can see that, let's say if you're going to flag, right, the easy way here, and I'll just kind of give you a brief example, you would just go to Alliance and you do the same thing for placing your fortresses, right? You would just click build. In this case, same thing, Alliance flag, I'd click build. Now I can't build anything, but just to kind of give you an example here, this is what you would do, right? You'd click build and then you'd come out here and you place. Now, the important thing is you do not want to overlap territory. You don't want to do this, right? You want to do this. Why? Because if I do this, now I'm doubling up. I've gone more into the current existing territory here, and I'm not getting the max value on space that I could be, which would therefore allow me to try and get the most amount of area coverage that I can, which could spawn more RSS nodes within the area, or even allow for me to get more nodes. Now, general rule of thumb here, and someone is more than welcome to correct me on this if I'm wrong, but you need to be over halfway, from my understanding, right, when it comes to these tiles, right? So something like this wouldn't actually get you this gold deposit. You need to be a little more than over halfway on it. In addition, like I said, be cognizant. The other thing I'll give you as a special tip is try not to build, if you can help it, try not to build where your flag is has a lot of the zone here that you see layered off, because you're not going to get any tiles that will spawn there. Now, sometimes it may just be mandatory, right? You can see they ended up going through here on this flag, so they're not really getting, a lot of value because there's cutoff area. So, right, or just non-accessible area. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you will have to do it, but other times if you can avoid it, it's best so you can maximize the area you can get for those RSS tiles and potentially deposit tiles as well. Okay, so there we talked about flagging, how to do it. The last thing I'll say real quick about flagging is be cognizant of how much the flags cost, right? You want to think about, like if I click on this, it'll show you, here's how much each of the flags cost. Think about when, and this is why it's important to consider how your ratios are developing for food, wood, stone, and gold, because you need to be aware, along with the alliance credits, thinking about, okay, well, how much does a flag cost? Okay, so this is how much the flag costs for however these many flags. Now I need to think about how much I need to have in the storehouse. Okay, I can do 2 or 3 flags today. Sometimes you need to think about how many flags can you make based on how many resources you have, because that may factor into where you go to as kind of a short-term or a long-term goal, right? So again, just something to be mindful of. Then let's talk about, it's going to be really important. The next thing here is going to be technology, right? So technology for doing like flag tech is going to be really important, right? So you're going to find this under territory. And this is going to be where you'll look at things, for example, like flag quantity, right? Early flag quantity will be important, and you'll find yourself, right, again, look at how many flags you can max out for that period, and then this is when you need to start, right? You want to try and do your flag quantity level 1 out of 5 to where you can get that researched and completed right before you start maxing your flags out, right? So be very aware of what the timing is there, because you don't want to run into a situation where you're at max flags built, but you're waiting to finish flag quantity, right, for level 1 out of 5. Because then all you're doing is missing out. And then if your storehouse capacity ends up going to max, right, then you're missing out on generation that you're losing out on, right, because you're not able to use it. So something like that. Looking at storehouse expansion, right, these are things that you want to keep track of when the appropriate time is to do it ahead of time, so you don't max these out. Okay, and then that talks about tech. So next we're going to get into kind of updating your team, right? So I think it's really important to make sure that you're keeping your officers and your leader up to date on what the flag plan is, right? So if you have a plan for the next 10, 15, 20 flags, let them know, hey, we're going to go for this objective. We're going to try and flag along this path. Here's tiles that I've already scouted out. Let them know ahead of time what the plan is, so they're up to date. And whenever you're not online, or if something has to be done, or maybe you're just not looking, or you're not available and the next flag needs to go, then they know exactly where that can happen, so you're not losing any time or steps in the actions. Then we look at writing up mails. So I think writing up mails is really efficient and super important, right? So doing that just to let your team know, hey, here's our plan for the day on flags. We're going to be focusing on this area and maybe going for this structure, because that'll also let your members know, okay, well, hey, for the day we're going to focus here. So if they want to place their cities ahead of time, maybe ahead of where the flags are going to be, which is a nice little pro tip, right, is that you place cities ahead of where flags will be placed, so that way you would go, maybe 5 or 6 flags deep, or maybe 10 flags deep, depending on how many you think you can do that day. And that way the distance that they have to travel for the marches to fill those flags is less than it would be if they're, running from somewhere where no flags are built, 100, 200, 300 kilometers away. Then, again, when it comes to filling flags and markers, be sure that you are marking flags so you can tell people, hey, we're going to fast build, we're doing a slow build. And basically what you do here is you just click on the flag, and then what you're going to do is you would essentially, what's going to happen is there's going to be a purple icon, I believe it's purple, and it'll have a flag shape, and that indicates it's an alliance marker. So when you place that marker, everyone will get an inbox notification that they can pull up to show that, okay, well, hey, right, this is the next flag that we're placing. And it'll also read off whatever title that you put in it as well. From there, when it comes to kind of, again, listing markers, letting them know what you're going to do, sometimes I think it's cool to be fun with it. And one of the things I like to do sometimes is I'll be like, munch, fast build me, right? And I'll just label that. Or I'll say, hey, Bob the Builder needs this done fast, right? Or Bob the Builder ASAP, right? Or ASAP me, Bob's. Just something funny like that. Or like munching wood really fast, right? Just funny things that you can do. I like to think that kind of keeps it a little light and humorous. Then, again, I think it's also good, but it's pretty straightforward when it comes to filling flags, right? You just click on the flag, right? You would click, I think it's join or build, and then you just send your march there to do it, right? So it's pretty straightforward, but I think it can be important to at least list that out to members who may not be familiar with it. Or maybe send them to this video. Next is going to be have a group chat that's set up. I think that's really important. And how you do the group chats is you would essentially just kind of go through your member list. Let's go here. And then what you'll do is you'll just add everyone. You'll just click, you go to info, and I think it's add. Where am I going here? Mail. Oh gosh, I got to think about how I can actually get here now. Let's see, mail assist. Let's go info chat. Okay, here it is. I have to go to chat. And then once I'm at chat, I click here, and then I do add. Yeah, so a little bit of, some time to take. But you essentially want to add everyone from your alliance, and then you can create a group chat and add them to that group chat, and then you can post where the next flag is going to be. So it's a way to kind of keep people up to date. And they also get a little side notification, so that can help a lot as well. Now, the last thing here that I'll give you that I think is just kind of a good, I don't know if I'd say a special tip, but I think it is something to be aware and cognizant of, is that you want to keep in mind where you're flagging and the situation that is occurring in your zone 1 province, right? So an example is if if you have allies, right, or if you have other people that you're working with to kind of split territory, it might not be the best thing just to build straight across, right, where you're going to intersect, or you're going to pass them, right, where you might have to cut their flags off. In addition, being aware of where other alliances are placed based on what structures you're going for first, also what structures they may be going for, those are just things to keep in mind, right? So flagging is really important. You have to think ahead and look around the area to see how everyone else is developing their territory, because that can factor into what you may go for first, what you feel like you might have enough time to go for second, third, or fourth. So just something to keep in mind. I think that's pretty much it, and we've touched on the majority of everything that I wanted to touch on. Again, if there's anything I missed, I'm sure someone will let me know in the comments down below, and of course, I'd love to hear from you, right? Did you find this video helpful? If you're interested in flagging for your alliance, if you're someone new to the game, did this help you? If you're someone who maybe has done flagging a little bit, but maybe you haven't considered or thought about all the different things that you can do as a flagger and planner, right? I'd love to know what you thought. Or even if you're someone who does flagging and planning, right? What are some additional things or maybe steps that you like to take that you find can be really helpful, especially for maybe new players that are watching this video? That is it for me. Until next time, as always, I'll catch you later.